In today's video, I'm going to give you a timeline for youth pitchers. When to start strength training, when to start arm care, when to consider that winter sort of velocity mechanics program, when to throw your first changeup or breaking ball, when to start recruiting, all that different stuff in this video. If you're new here, I'm Dan Blewett. I'm a former baseball academy owner, former pro pitcher, and the big thing that I get a lot of questions from parents on is when should we start this? When should we do this? When should I put the money towards this? So that's kind of what we'll run down in this video today. So, all right, first thing, private lessons. When should you start private pitching lessons, or really any lesson for that matter? I think the right age is between 8 and 10. I would not take lessons clients below age 8 because usually, they're not going to practice too much because they're kids. So they're going to go home and do all the different sorts of stuff. They're just running around, chasing bugs and, playing with their dog and playing 17 different impromptu sports in the backyard. Don't do lessons number one until your kid's really committed to baseball and they're ready to go home and practice at least 3 days a week between lessons. If they go home and they don't practice before their next lesson, they will not make any progress. So don't waste money if they're not really ready to actually go home and do the homework that your lessons instructor prescribes. And then they also need to be able to physically and mentally focus and have some amount of body control. A lot of kids who are 6 and 7 and 5 years old, they don't have the body control where I can tell them, let's try this, or let's do this drill, or try to get your shoulders here. And they just can't do it. So it's just a waste of time trying to instruct someone and pay for that instruction when your kid is not going to be able to do and execute on the movements that they're learning. So for lessons, I say 8 to 10 is probably the right age range, but really depends on their physical and their focus development as well. Number 2, arm care. When should you start an arm care program? We know taking care of throwing arms is important. We want to prevent injury, but this is a really boring thing. And if you start arm care, you're never really going to stop it. So it's not like you do arm care from like 10 to 13, then you take 2 years off, then you start up again. Once you start this, you're going to want to do it consistently for the rest of your career. And look, it's boring. And this is one of the things that I was really burned out about at the end of my career. I did not want to do those boring, tedious arm care exercises that I had to do like 20 minutes a day for like the last 10 years of my career, 15 years of my career. They suck. It's taking medicine and they suck and they're boring. So just keep that in mind. Most kids who are pretty young, if they're not getting drastically overpitched, they don't put enough force through their arm to injure themselves at young ages. There are lots of different aches and pains that they can get, but in general, I say wait a little bit longer and try to, push them into doing arm care, maybe like 12 or 13 or 14, but there's no reason that kids like 10 under really need to do it. If they're just running around playing other sports, they're being physically active, if they're maybe doing some other type of strength training, which we'll cover in a second, that will really cover arm care for the most part. But again, if you're pushing kids to do this consistently at age 10, I don't think it's going to bode well, and it's going to add to this workload of making baseball boring and feel like their job rather than this fun sport that they love. Strength training. When should you start strength training as a young ball player? I think the minimum age here is 12. I don't think all the other like body weight stuff is really that relevant unless kids have a lot of fun with it. If you want to do body weight workouts with your team, fine. But a lot of times they become very militant and coaches are like, we got to do these, we got to get stronger, we got to get faster. And that adds to burnout for kids. And they really don't get a lot better from doing a lot of those exercises, like running around playing baseball, chasing the ball around, moving in 3 dimensions, running the bases. Those teach a lot of strength training related skills. There's a lot of speed and agility stuff that they're learning from their sport. So just let it be their sport until I say age 12 plus. And really, I say the kids should be ready to do strength training where they're excited to do it. It's not just like another pill they have to take. Because again, if you keep loading all these things onto their shoulders, they have to do strength training 3 times a week and they don't like it. They have to do arm care 3 days a week and they don't like it. They have to do all this other stuff. And then it's like, I don't want to play baseball anymore at 15. I just want to go like skateboard with my friends, because baseball, there's so much stuff that I have to do that I hate. And I like the games and I like to practice, but I hate all this other stuff. Strength training can definitely fall in that bucket, as can arm care, as can lessons, and practicing stuff at home if they're just not that really into it. So be careful with all this stuff, but I think 12 plus is when you should start strength training if your son or daughter is ready to do it. Winter velocity programs. When should you do one of these? So this highly depends on how reputable your program is, right? I have a buddy up in Baltimore. They do a really good job with their winter off-season programs. Now, I think there is always some level of danger to these winter velocity programs because you're throwing a ball hard an extra couple months out of the year, and that does have some toll later on. So I think there really are only so many bullets in an arm. And if you're running and throwing full speed into a net, there's some toll to that. So if you're really cautious about injury prevention, be careful. Definitely ask around and like get a good recommendation for a facility. But regardless, I don't think you should be starting these programs if they're highly focused on velocity until 14 plus. Most of the time with younger players, if they just continue to throw and practice a lot, they do some lessons here and there, they're going to get enough, and really they're never going to outrun their growth spurt. So don't do one of these velocity programs before your kids really hit their like puberty growth spurt, because at that point, yes, strength training is going to act like their body's going to act like it's on steroids. The velocity programs, it's going to act like they're on steroids. So when they're actually starting to sprout up, hit puberty, their voice deepens, they're getting bigger and stronger, starting to look more like a man than a little boy, those are good times to jump on strength training if they feel like they're ready, and more of these like winter velocity programs. Again, I'm not endorsing the velocity programs, but I know a ton of people do them, right? We ran our own version of them back in my baseball academy when I still owned it. We didn't use weighted balls. Basically, it was a chance for kids to come in and play catch 3 days a week, to work on their mechanics. We did a lot of different drills. They would throw into a net. We would slowly ramp up, and then we do bullpens to prep them for the season. So it was more like an off-season pitching preparation program than really more like a velocity program. But of course, because they're working their mechanics and they're just learning to control their bodies and like fine-tune things, they always gain 3 to 5 miles per hour pretty much every winter. So there's a lot of different things to consider, but I think in general, these winter throwing velocity programs are best for like 14 and up. Real quick, do you want to support my channel and get access to hundreds of member-only baseball videos? If so, click the join button that you'll find right below and learn more about becoming a channel member. Next, let's talk about recruiting. When should you really start spending money on recruiting? Sending them to showcases, getting some of these online profiles, et cetera, et cetera. So number one, I will say you don't have to spend money on recruiting. You can take your own video of your kid. You can make your own recruiting videos, make them every 6 months or every time there's a big jump in velocity or something you definitely want to measure and show things are changed. But you can find all the emails of every single college coach. Like you could go on Vanderbilt's website and they have a recruiting email that you can send an email to their recruiting coordinator. And every one of these coaches reads these emails because they're trying to make their jobs easier. So if they're just going to skim it and hey, if they're a pass, they're just not going to respond, right? It's totally fine. But they really do read these emails, even all these big schools. If you want to save your money, take some video, get some game footage, get some bullpen footage, see if you can get velocity overlaid on there, all that's different stuff. And then make your own YouTube channel, make it unlisted, embed that in a email, put all the stats that they want, their grades, their SAT score, ACT score, where they go to school, their height, their weight, all that stuff, what team they play for, put all that in an email, send it off. That costs you $0. So that is really what I recommend doing. Number one, most of all, these online profile things, very mixed results. A lot of coaches say, yeah, I don't really wade through those. I don't really value those very much. Ask around, you'll hear that. And going to showcases, they really are only valuable if you can actually show a player that's ready to be signed. Like you go there and throw 86, 87 miles per hour as a junior, you're going to get real interest from a showcase if you do that. If you go and show 76, 77, you're not going to get any interest at all. And you're just not ready yet. So don't waste your money spending $300 to go show them something that might be good in the future. And maybe your kid's 14 and throws 75. That's great. But wait till they're 16 and throw 85 rather than 14 at 75. So really, I recommend 16 plus to really start putting effort, time, and potentially money into recruiting. When should a young pitcher throw their first changeup? My minimum age is about 10. Now you can start teaching this pitch at any age you want, but below 10 years old especially, kids have a really big range of speeds with their fastball that makes a changeup somewhat irrelevant. So if you're an 8-year-old, you probably throw between like 52 and 56 or 52 and 58. So if one fastball is 58 and the next fastball is 53, because their mechanics are inconsistent, their effort's inconsistent, all those things are inconsistent, because they have such a large range, they could throw a fastball at 53 and then a changeup at 54. And the changeup was really good, but the fastball, they kind of eased off. And so the changeup can fall within the error variance of their fastball. So it becomes not that effective at age, below age 10. At age 10, when kids start to throw a little bit harder and are a little more consistent, and of course, these are still really little kids, that's when the changeup can definitely start to separate a little bit more. You can get that 4 or 5 miles per hour of separation between the two pitches. That's going to actually make it a useful pitch in game. So you can teach a kid a changeup and they can start practicing it anytime they want. And really, I think the same is mostly true to practice, just to tinker and screw around and have fun with a curveball in the backyard. But I don't recommend them throwing a changeup in games until 10 and up. And now let's talk about curveballs and sliders. So whether they throw a curveball first or a slider first, really just their first breaking ball, doesn't matter which one. That should be, I think, around 14. Now, again, I think they can screw around with that, practicing it, tinkering with it, throwing sliders to their buddies playing catch, throwing curveballs to their buddies playing catch. Every player in the major leagues grew up doing that. I was throwing curveballs at age 12 to my friends, just like screwing around, imitating John Smoltz and Greg Maddux in my backyard. But I wasn't throwing curveballs in games until I was 15. And I didn't really formally learn a curveball until I was 14 or 15. So there's a big difference between what you do just tinkering with your buddies in the backyard and throwing 40 curveballs in an 80-pitch outing. And that's what I'm really disappointed in when I watch, say, the Little League World Series. You'll see kids pitch, and they'll throw 80 pitches, and they'll throw 40 curveballs. And that is a travesty. That is not good pitch calling. That is not good for their development. That's just the wrong thing to do at that age, because they don't learn to pitch. They don't learn to change speeds with their changeup. They don't learn how to be successful pitching on the edges of the plate. They just learn that when I need an out, I need a swing and miss, I just throw my curveball. So in-game perspective, age 10 and up is a changeup. So you should be fastball changeup until you're like 14. At 14 or 15, that's when you can start introducing your first breaking ball, whether it's a slider or curveball. It really doesn't make a difference. The research is pretty clear that neither of them are more stressful than the fastball from a torque standpoint. So it's not like you have to wait to learn a slider till you're 19 or 20. Whether you pick the slider or the curveball is really about your arm action and how you throw it and your mastery of the spin. So either pitch can be equally effective and can be fine as your first breaking ball. But age 10 for changeups, age 14 plus for breaking balls. So what did I miss in this video? Leave me a comment below. Let me know what other questions you have about the timeline for youth pitching development. There's lots of different milestones. There's lots of different things that you might be considering as part of your kids' training. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I read and respond to almost all of them. So thank you for watching. If you're new here, check out my books, my online courses, subscribe to my membership, where you get lots of VIP drills and other unpublished videos that you won't find here publicly on YouTube. And you'll be supporting me in the work that I do, helping to grow the online baseball community. All right, thanks so much again for watching, and I'll see you here in the next video. Real quick, want to support my channel and get more member-only videos that are not available here on my public YouTube channel? Click below the join button and you can access my membership. My channel membership gives you access to tons of perks and lots of videos that are here on YouTube but are unpublished.